add a new layer. Let's give some life to this thing. I'm gonna add a multiply layer. I'm gonna use blue, and let's give it a little bit of character here. Add a glaze to it and a tint. This is what I was talking about earlier about adding in stuff that's not there and changing the color and just making it a little more interesting. And then we'll just back it down a little bit, so it doesn't need to be too intense. And then we'll do layers, drop all, if we're satisfied with that. And I see that over here this is a little bit too distinct. So we'll just fix that a little bit. And then I'm going to add another layer, call it HL for highlights. I think I'm getting pretty close to being finished with this tutorial. You know, again, I could spend more time on this, and you should spend more time on your pieces too. This kind of gives you an idea of how to get started, and you know, you can go through and finish it and get it looking exactly how you want it to. I'm just going to have those highlights. You don't want too much though. You want these really bright highlights to be pretty subtle. Helps to blend them a little bit too sometimes. Let's add some final texture to this. Spend more time getting this to look the way you want it and getting all the shading and everything perfect before you do this texture. I'm going to kind of stop a little early on this. This looks pretty good for having only spent a little over an hour on it. You know, it usually takes me at least 4 to 8 hours to do a painting, and I work pretty fast. So for the texture, let's put that below this highlight layer, because we don't want texture over our highlights, and we'll make a new layer and we'll call it text. So this will give our skin some texture. We'll use the sponge for this. Now, texture is what? It's freckles, it's blemishes, it's skin cells, it's the veins underneath your skin, it's all of these things. So that's pretty much what you just need to draw in. So we have some blue veins in our face, so we'll, whoops, needs to be a multiply blend mode. We'll tap in some blue here. I'm going to try to stay on the face, because otherwise you're just going to have to erase it from the background. We'll try some red, a couple spots. We'll take down the opacity of that layer a little bit, and then let's just go through and let's use our eraser to erase anywhere that texture painted off of the face onto anywhere else, and keep taking down the opacity until you get something that you like. So you want it to be subtle, and you can see if I zoom in close, there you go, you got some really cool vessels in the face. Now that doesn't need to be everywhere, and you should blend it a little too, so we'll use the diffuse blur for that. Follow the contours and blend lightly. So I'm following the contours of the skin, and very, very, very lightly, as light as you can blend, blending this, because if you don't and you blend too hard, it goes away. We don't want it to go away, we just want it to naturally blend into the skin here. Let's add another texture layer. It's going to be some texture for the background maybe. And again, use your eraser to just erase whatever's not where it's supposed to be. Take down the opacity and blend it ever so lightly into the background. So now it's going to look like there's a wall or something maybe behind me. We can further unify the composition by adding some lighting effects. So add a new layer. Let's call this vignette. You can pick a vignette color. I'll do something extreme like this just to show how we can really, keep forgetting to do it multiply, show how we can really change the image here and the tonality of it if you wanted to. Gotta still think about the face as a three-dimensional object, so you want to try to keep your lights on the side that they're supposed to be on. Something like that. I don't know why I called that vignette. That's actually more of a tint. I meant to do a vignette, so then I thought the tint looked cool. So let's do an actual vignette. What a vignette is it's just a dark area around the outside of the canvas here, like this. And that'll kind of make it look more like a portrait and bring more of the focus in towards the center. You can have it be as dark as you want. One last thing I think we can do, let's make a layer called HL2 just for highlights. Some more highlights here. I'm going to pick kind of a light color like this. Use the square chalk. And we'll turn the paper texture and contrast up all the way, and let's see what we get here. I think we want something more like this. So this is going to be some kind of shiny, oily spots on the skin. And then we'll use the sponge. Set the blend mode to screen for that. And we'll use black with the sponge to tap over it, and using black with the sponge over a screen layer will remove or conceal the white pixels. So if I set it to a normal blend mode, you'll see I've added black and white, but when it's set to screen, you can only see the white. The black covers up the white. And then we can turn down the opacity just a little bit. And then of course we need to blend it too, lightly, following the contours. This is something that you want to be pretty subtle. Let's add blemishes, because people have freckles and acne and all kinds of stuff, and you know what, you don't have to put it in there, but I'm showing you how you can make some realistic stuff here, and that's all part of it. Set the blend mode to multiply, and I'm going to use a pepper spray brush, which is in the airbrushes category. Make sure the settings are what I have up here, and then try to keep this on your skin. Put in some freckles and dots. You can keep changing your feature size if you want, but you probably want to keep it pretty small. I don't really have a whole lot of freckles, but I have some, so I'm going to put some in there. And if you feel like you've done too much, again, you can go with the sponge and use white to kind of erase some of it. We don't want there to be any on our eyes, so we want to make sure that we don't get any freckles in our eyes. Probably on our lips we shouldn't have any either, but everywhere else is cool. Maybe not in our nostrils. Definitely not on our shirt or in our hair. There's freckles there. Now let's blend them a little bit, like we've been doing with everything else, following the contours of the body. And this is one of those things where, like, if you are painting someone that has freckles, you probably want to find the bigger ones and draw those in manually. But everything else, just kind of splatter them in, because, you know, no one's going to really notice whether or not you got them in the right spot. I don't think anybody pays that much attention to freckles. So, there you go. There's a quick painting of my face. Save it as a RIF or a PSD. Thanks for watching, and have fun with this.